jump right into it. As I probably told you, I'm doing a lot of research on podcasting. So, what's better than actually talking to people that are already doing this, you know?
Right.
And I selected like quite a few entrepreneurs, but for different things, and I think yours was just for the wisdom. We've been um, in a mastermind together, and I noticed that, you just have a lot of just on the go um, tips that, kept everybody in the mastermind going, and that's why I wanted to hear your point of view. I wanted to see your experience, and I'm sure it's something that's going to be um, of not just interest, but very helpful to my audience. So let's jump right into it. Tell me about your background. Give me a little of your background and tell me why you got into podcasting in the first place.
Yes, I'm so glad that you're asking and taking this time, Christine. In terms of how I got started, honestly, I started when I was just really passionate about connecting with people beyond my local sphere, having had many opportunities to minister and to connect with people on church to church basis, coming from a ministerial family. And I would find that I would make some really great connections, whether it was speaking at conferences and providing resources to get people to go deeper in their own personal disciplines, whether it was journaling or taking time to just have that quiet time in the Word of God and in with what they're creating. And so I found that I wanted to have another level of connection. And one way that I did that was through writing and publishing my books. And whenever I would have opportunities to share this resource with them, I would get feedback that they wanted to know whatever else that I was doing. So I started a blog, and I thought I was always blogging, but come to find out I was just putting up information and giving updates. So it was almost like a newsletter online. It wasn't necessarily the research and all these other elements that we know comes with actually blogging and reaching beyond your local sphere, but now on the World Wide Web. I ended up getting a little bit more in tune with that, with the groups that I was a part of and the connections I was making with other bloggers and the success that they were making and building up their audience and connecting more with people who would never find them locally, will never find them in their community because they were global, in terms of different countries, and just found them on the World Wide Web. And so I got very intrigued by that and ended up launching my first official blog as a blogger, in the sense of all the elements that comes with blogging, researching, and making sure that your topic and everything is cohesive. My background is actually in English and writing, so it kind of had that natural flow in now going beyond like the book format and now in a online world article sort of format. And so I used all of that sort of skill and experience and tools to kind of really develop as time went on. And the natural progression was the podcast. So you see now kind of different levels of reaching and getting clear on my messaging, getting clear on the kinds of people that I wanted to reach with what I create in terms of the articles and now podcast episodes. And then, of course, the freebies, the resources, the checklist, everything else that is there to enhance the experience of my audience and why they connected with me.
So, do you find that blogging complements your podcasting or the other way around, or is it?
Certainly. Because I did blogging first, I'm finding that that natural progression of the podcast has really complemented and has also really drill down and magnify the reach and the way in which I'm able to really have that connection with my audience. So it not only complements it, but it propels that vision and that reach forward.
that's amazing. Now, what's your topic on? What's your podcasting? I have been to your website, but I'd like my audience to um, get a little feel for what you do
Yes.
with your blogging and your podcasting.
Certainly. So I have multiple blogs, but the one that I really have honed in on and concentrate a great deal on is Radiant Pearl Living, and that is really that the passion of helping people to find their purpose and their passion, and providing those resources and tools for them to be able to make their visions and their dreams a reality, and really enhancing that sort of mindset with living life colorfully with all that is available to us. And so I have like my own resource library of lots of different ways to help people through honing down on that vision. And a way that I do that is also sharing multi-generational stories that inspire. So no matter what season or what place you're in, you can find your vision, get clear on that with like the checklist. I do the vision boards and all the fun little things in terms of journaling and really being able to find community. So, you know, that the membership aspect of the Facebook group, and doing different calls and deep dive time together in community with our co-working as well as with our journaling, and then providing that support in community so they can find each other, connect with each other, and know that they're not on the journey alone in seeing their vision that they really want to have become a reality, be brought forth together with the help of, you know, each other as radiant pearls. And so that even that concept and the title of Radiant Pearls, it's a growth process. So we recognize it's not going to happen overnight, but if you tap into the right resources and the right people to help guide you along in making that vision a reality, then you're going to go so much further.
And I have been privy to the resources you share, and it's quite amazing. So,
Thank you.
now, what platform do you use? And would you recommend this platform to somebody starting off newly?
Certainly. So I use, in terms of for my blog, which is also where I have my show notes, it's on WordPress, but I have integrated that. I started originally with the platform of Blueberry. And so I do have a partnership with both Blueberry and Buzzsprout, because I have a second podcast as well. And I tried them for the second one. And I'm really leaning now towards Buzzsprout. A lot of things are streamlined, so I would highly recommend. And I do provide specific resource for that as well for hosting.
Oh, wow. Now, what would you say is involved in launching a podcast?
So there's so many different elements. When you look at the big picture plan that you have in mind, you definitely want to decide first and foremost what is in alignment with your hosting, because obviously you have to have a place to house, you know, where you're going to have the actual MP3, the files, that audio files that people are going to hear, and that is going to be pushed out to all the platforms that you have applied to be on. And so, of course, that's going to include Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, our iHeartRadio, you have Stitcher, you have a few other platforms that are very well known that people utilize now. Amazon has come alongside, and of course we know Apple iPhone has that native app, and we just found out that Samsung and Android, they also have now a native app. And so that does allow people right off the box to be able to discover your podcast and to discover you. And so that's kind of one of the ways you want. Your hosting is what really makes that happen. And that's why I went with Blueberry first, because it was natively integrated with WordPress, which is the website and the platform I use for blogging and now for my show notes. But you can have your show notes ready directly into your hosting if you just want to make it very easy and simple, and you don't know how to do design, and you don't want to, you're not at that level yet to get all those elements up and running. But that is what I would say first and foremost, is that hosting. and having that big picture plan in mind in terms of, you have just simple things that you want to have so you can sound great, like having a mic. I don't know if you can see this mic, but the mic and the boom arm. So, but some people can record directly from their phone. So don't let that stop you if you just want to really just get that message and that vision that you have a reality, and may not have the funds to get all the extra things, but that the microphone can make a difference with the sound, as well as if you want to bring in the element of visuals, if you have a camera, a webcam, so that you can tap into some of the other ways to get your audience connected with your podcast and with the content you're creating, whether it's in YouTube and other formats, all the fabulous ways we love to show up so we can continue to drill deeper.
Wow, wow, wow. Sounds like there's so much involved in launching and running a podcast. What would you say is that a newbie needs to know? Well, I shouldn't use that word newbie. What would you say that somebody new to podcasting needs to know coming into this right off the bat? Like, what do they need to know that they're going to be doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, that they can find out without having experienced it themselves?
I find that, and I love this question, Christine, because I find that sometimes not until you get your feet wet and you start doing it, do you recognize all of the components of truly being able to take off and really be successful, especially in a field like this. And I would find that just off the bat, you want to plan. And that is one of the things that we find planning goes such a long way when it comes to really being able to be in it for the long haul and recognize that there are going to be times that you're going to have other things because life happens and you're going to have so many different things that is going to come across your plate, because most podcasters don't just podcast. We do so many other fun, amazing things. And this is a component that, as you mentioned earlier, will complement, but will also really propel some of the other areas of your life that you're called to show up and to serve in. Doors are going to be open to you. And so you're going to find yourself getting really busy. And so planning is what is going to help you stay ahead of the game. And that is a part of the consistent thing that you are going to have to do so that you can consistently show up and produce and really serve value for your audience in audio format, because people can tell when you're not prepared. They can hear the authenticity, they can hear the conviction, they can tell if you're just winging it based on how you sound, and if you are truly prepared and you're speaking from your heart, and you get more comfortable with what it is that you're conveying if you are prepared and if you've planned for it. And so just having like an outline, having templates has made all the difference, particularly for me. I found when it comes to really being able to have a schedule in place to produce, to connect, to collaborate, the relationships. If you're doing an interview-based podcast, if you're doing a podcast just on your own, you want to bring in all these other elements to make sure that you're not losing your listeners and keeping them on that journey with storytelling and with the planning that you do in advance, so that you stay cohesive in your message and what it is that you want to convey and have as a takeaway for your listeners and your audience. So planning, creating that content with your templates, setting up interviews. If you have the interview-based podcast, having a system in place that is going to collect the questionnaires and the answers, so you can be prepared and your guest can be prepared for what it is that you are going to have them share. And then of course, if you're going to be recording audio format, there are lots of tools out there, but of course we have Zoom. We're on Zoom right now, and a lot of people are familiar with that. So you can utilize and get the video from there, and the video and the audio from there, and put it into an editing tool. You can do the editing yourself. You have GarageBand, you have Adobe Audition. I'm telling you, I there are resources and I've got that for you as well. But those are some of the basics that you'll find you'll need to have in your motion as you're continuing to create as a podcaster.
Wow, that just blows me away. It's just like so much information. I'm glad we're having this recorded. Now, what challenges have you overcome? What challenges should someone expect to run into? And I'm asking three questions in one, so you answer it anyhow you wish. But the third one is, what struggles are you dealing with right now?
Yes, so challenges, oh my word, I find that really challenges do help us to learn, right? To grow and to improve all around. And so I found that the challenges that I've been through, they've all really made me stronger. And what really stands out to me is the challenge of time. It's something that I find even just having a business, being an entrepreneur online, and having all the amazing things that we can do. And I used to have a challenge in the past of saying no to certain opportunities because I wanted to make the most of every opportunity that I get, right? But then you find as you continue to grow and you develop, it's not as much a challenge for me today as it was for me before, where saying no, but now I recognize when I say no to some of the things that appear to be right things, it allows me and it frees me up to say yes to the better things, to the best things that are ahead, for not only my life, you know, those who are connected with me and my audience, but just in general, the quality of time that I'm able to pour in creating quality content. I'm not run haggard or overwhelmed, because you'll find we hear that word a lot. People get stuck, they get overwhelmed, and all those things because they're doing so many things, and some of those things may be good things, but they're not truly the best things in this particular season. As you're developing your skill and as you're growing and you are making connections, that's going to propel you, I love using that word, really propel you forward into where you need to go, where you're called to go, and where you're going to be most impactful when you go. So those are just some of the things that I found. It's a work in progress, and so time is a challenge still to a degree, because the further you go and you succeed is the more opportunities that you do get presented with, and you do have to, so I evaluate, I take time with the challenges I have now. I do my blocking of time. I have a content calendar, and I have both a physical one, you know, I have my physical stuff that I use, and then I have my digital. So I have my spreadsheet, and the content calendar is going to help me. I have a year-long view of what it is that I'm working towards. I have a quarterly view, I have a monthly view, and I have a weekly and a daily. So I can see that big picture plan and see how I am warming myself up, warming up my audience, preparing, taking steps towards, and taking myself and others who are coming with me along on that journey so that we can be successful. And I will find that that marketing aspect too, you take out that overwhelm when you have that content calendar. So that's what's helping me to overcome the challenge that I've had in the past, and that, you know, I'm presently working through.
That's amazing. That's at the end of the day, it's all about planning for you. And I bet that's the same, you know, for every single podcaster. I think that's one shared challenge that everybody talks about, is how to overcome uh, the challenge of time and how to plan adequately. Now, going back a little before we step forward, I want to figure out how you decided on your niche, because that's always a challenge for everyone, whether you're blogging, podcasting, YouTubing. Um, we're all told to niche down, you know, find that audience that you want to speak to and that you connect to. How did you determine that your niche was the people that need um, help growing, in the different things that you're doing versus your training? You said you're a writer. Well, yeah, I know that comes in too. You could easily have gone with teaching people how to write content or how to work with content. So why did you decide on um, more like a business niche? Can I call it that?
Yes, yes, yes. So I do have two niches that I've honed in on, and I feel like it's so important to get very clear, as you're mentioning, on the specific niche, because then you don't want to muddle the waters with saying this is what you do, and people don't know what to come to you for, because you are just all over the place. And I find that a lot of us who create content, even online, who are, I like to say fearless creators, and I have the fearlesscreator.com site as well, and podcast. And so that is more of that business niche. And so what I find is that if I can drill down on the message and what it is that I do provide and the niche and how I'm best going to be able to serve, that allows people to know right off the bat why they should come to me if they would like to collaborate with me on a project, or if they'd like for me to speak, if they would like for me to be interviewed on their podcast or be featured for something that they know I'll be able to speak on as an expert, so to speak, in that area, because I've really drilled deep in how I show up and serve on that particular topic, whether it's on my blog, website, and in the podcast, because of the time I've spent in creating the content, right, that is shared on that platform. So that is that niche. And I eventually got to that. I started out in just spiritual. I mentioned earlier that I was focusing on, just really faith and Bible, because that is what I know, that is what I live, breathe, eat, sleep. If you want to take it, that level, just because, I mentioned earlier that I do minister and I sing. I'm a recording artist, and I've had opportunities where I would just go and minister at churches. And so I recognized that I needed to hone in on, those who I was called to serve outside of just online, but in person. Those were the doors that were open to me. And so I wanted to be able to find ways to be able to provide additional resources, which is why Radiant Per Living came about. And the Bible journaling, we would meet on Periscope, we'd meet on all these different places and platforms, now the YouTube and all of that, because it is a visual thing and people have their videos and you can integrate that in your blog post. And then now for your podcast, you can actually, bring on other people who are in those same faith space. So I would say getting clear on the niche, you recognize that that's something that will happen naturally as you continue to really get clear on who you're called to serve, your why, your mission, and your vision, which is always growing. And you have to keep reevaluating that. And the reason how you're able to really drill deep in that niche is when you recognize people are coming to you and asking you sometimes the same questions over and over again, because they recognize that you know this thing and you are showing up and providing value in this area. And there is a need. You see, there is a need because they're asking those questions. You see in the Facebook groups, people are, showing up and wanting to learn more. And they're engaging. People do research by seeing the books that are on Amazon and the questions that are being asked there. So that is how you drill deep on your niche, is kind of really recognizing, evaluating, listening, and hearing from your audience, whether it's on Facebook or in those other places on social media that you're connected, whether you're sending out a simple newsletter and you're getting responses and you're getting questions. That is going to show you the path and the content you need to create as you continue to drill down on your niche.
So did you decide on who your audience was before you started, or did that develop as you went along?
I did decide for the faith niche that I knew who I was called in that regard, just because of my life and my passion, and what I believe is my calling and purpose. But the actual entrepreneur part, that is something that I ended up finding me to a degree as I continue to get better in the online marketing space and online entrepreneurship space.
That's awesome. Now, what do you use experts on your podcast? And if so, how do you find them?
So, for the experts, and I love this question because for the experts that I do connect with, and I do have featured on the podcast. I'll say that I recently had acquired a grant that was specifically what I pitched proposal wise for writing and writing well and featuring what I believe to be fearless creators. And so a part of that is really helping others who are going to be tuning in, getting maybe access to the workshops that was grant funded and some of the resources like maybe the planners and workbooks and things like that were covered under that. I found that I am not the one that knows it all, right? So you have to turn to the experts who have also been able to go on that journey of writing well. And so what I found is that I put out a call. I mentioned a little bit earlier Facebook groups, and I found that I've really connected with a lot of incredible experts in that space. It's all about how you're showing up and, how you decide to really put yourself out there. So just like you're putting yourself out there with the content you create, whether it's in blog format or podcast format, how you're showing up in building relationships online goes such a long way with the experts and the collaborations and the people who you're going to have not only glean maybe some of the wisdom and the resources you're providing, but also wanting to pour into the audiences that you both have been called to serve. And so that collaboration has happened because I would see people answering certain questions and you recognize, because you're showing up too, that, they have a level of wisdom and depth and understanding in a certain area that you may not necessarily have. And you can bring that other perspective and bring, just like you're doing today, Christine, and bring that value to your audience. So showing up in those spaces. And also I found personally on summits, we have a lot of that going on right now, virtual summits. And so I've been able to make a lot of really deep next level connections because I was also a speaker, and you recognize, oh, okay, we're all providing value. We all kind of have a level of awareness about who we're called to serve and a level of professionalism and how we're going to show up. And so right off the bat, I've had experts that I could really count on and collaborate with in that regard as well.
Do you monetize your podcast? And if so, which monetization models do you use?
Yes. Oh, I just love knowing that we can profit off of what it is we're called to do. And even though we're doing it because we want to make a difference and help people, and we're passionate about it, naturally we hear sometimes the money will come, but you have to be intentional and strategic sometimes about this, because if you just keep giving away things for free, you'll never be able to have, things taken care of, because we do need the websites. We do need, to take care of the bill, even in terms of light and internet and all that fun stuff that is required to have your business, right? So I think for myself, I found right off the bat, I was always providing products because my first book was written when I was 17. And so I was always when I would even go in person at conferences, they normally do honorariums and things like that, but they would give opportunities for you to have a setup with your products. So whether it was going to be the book or my CDs, music and so forth, I always had my pens, like my little Radiant Pearl pens in my cases and things to help them on their faith journey and their discipline of journaling and really spending time in worship and, just with what I do with the faith space. And so that was a way right off the bat. And so why would it be any different in the online space? I have virtual products. I have virtual planners. That is some of the biggest ways that I've been able to monetize is through the products that I specifically create. And then another way is through affiliate marketing. So because I do a lot of guides and checklists, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and those who are in the online entrepreneur space, I will do like starter packs and different offers and, membership and, coaching, consulting, all those different things. There's such a myriad of ways that you're able to monetize. And I don't think enough people tap into creating their own resources, whether it's their own planners, their own journals, their own, even actual in-hand physical products that you can ship. Those are all the ways that I've been able to monetize my business, and I love it.
Sounds amazing. In talking to a lot of podcasters, I find out that those that don't monetize their podcasts are the ones that have frustrated in that space now. So even though they enjoy talking and connecting with an audience, they're not getting paid for their time. So it becomes really frustrating. So there's no shame. There's no shame in monetizing your business.
Right.
Yeah. So let's see. Tell me what you think is a surprising thing that a new podcaster will definitely run into. Something that surprised you as a podcaster.
Yes. What I found just being on this journey for so long, I never imagined that I would have grown so much so quickly in terms of recognizing the way that personal self-development, you hear it all the time, especially as an entrepreneur. If you are going to have the capacity to be able to truly show up as your best self and be able to provide the value as you continue to grow and develop even the market and the audience and the value and whatever it is that you are creating, you have to keep growing, you have to keep developing, and you have to keep expanding your width and your breadth and your knowledge and your understanding so that you can best serve those who are coming in your sphere, right? And I found a lot of people go to conferences, a lot of people do all of those things, but like now we have the World Wide Web where you can get so much information. You can have, coaching, mentorship, be a part of memberships, all these amazing ways that you're able to grow, glean, and develop. And so I found that specifically when it comes to podcasting, I did not recognize, because I've always valued growing and going to networking and conferences and all those things, but I've seen such a swift just doors of opportunity in really growing, drilling deep. And it's happened literally in the span of a year. I think what I've been able to accomplish in my blog in maybe the 10 years or so, I'm able to do with a podcast in just a year, which it's like 10 times the exponential growth that is possible. And you don't really understand it until you're in it. And you see just how other people, even the experts that you're bringing on and the collaborations, the connections, that's why community is so important, that you are spending time with, your growing and you're gleaning, but also it's really pushing you forward. And you recognize you have to keep up, but it's not a keep up like, oh, keeping up with the Joneses. It's a keep up like, I want to be able to just really give my best, serve in my best. And so you recognize that you're learning at a swifter pace as a result of all the elements that it takes to do a podcast and to do it well as you grow and market.
That's awesome. Now, how do you promote your podcast?
So I really do. That's why I love the content calendar. This question is a gem, and it's so different, I know, for everyone how they approach this. But I, with my content calendar, it has the social media. There's a part of the actual spreadsheet that has the social media each day. And so you can decide, and that's what I do. I decide on how I'm going to go ahead and promote. And so the first thing that, of course, I do is there's a lot of elements to my particular podcast. Not everybody has to do this, but I normally record the actual episode and I will do it in video format as well as audio format. And if I'm doing it on Zoom or if I'm streaming it live, it can go directly to my Facebook group if I'm making an event out of it. And so that's the first element and layer of marketing is that I've gotten people to RSVP for the event in advance, and I'm providing value right away to my audience. And then while they're watching it, if it is streamed live on Facebook, they're sharing it out. That is another form of marketing that is pretty much ambassadorial from those who are part of my super fans, right? The ambassadors that are going to keep helping to get the message out there. The other element of marketing is that after I've done maybe that live or I've done that interview, is that I do have in my particular content calendar a plan later on to release it in a image format on Instagram. And, you know, of course, that you do some engagement, get new eyes on that. I also have that particular template where it is also in a story format. So it's going to go in my stories, whether it's in Facebook or Instagram. People now use TikTok, you know, and then we have Pinterest. So these are all social media and search engine tools that we are able to get some more eyes and visibility on the podcast episode. You link directly to the podcast and you have people hearing little snippet, you know, I use headliner, you have audiogram, a lot of different ways that you can get little snippets out there for people to listen and hear some of the little nuggets and value. And now they want to listen to the full episode, right? And so those are just some of the little ways that I will normally do that right off the bat. Tapping into those who you mentioned earlier, maybe you're the experts, they have their own audience. So if they are being featured, you know, making it so easy for them to share. So I create that graphic with them, you know, being all featured there and they're highlighted on that graphic. They can share it on their social media networks. If it's live, they can share the live from then as well. And then I do a live premiere. So I do the live premiere of the video, which is why I like incorporating this element, because I can live premiere it on Facebook later on with all the editing and graphics and all the fun things that show, hey, subscribe. Hey, you want more resources? Connect here. And so that builds another layer of really digging deep and really being able to have new people find you and get connected with what you provide. And then I also live premiere it on YouTube, because not everybody has Facebook, and YouTube, you know, you can even monetize there as well. And so people will sometimes find it because we know YouTube is a search engine tool. And so people will find you if you are strategic. That's where it comes in again, being strategic in the keywords that you use. When you title your podcast, when you title your graphics, when you make your cover art, even for the thumbnail on YouTube, and what you have in your description and where it takes them to with your show notes and the opt-ins and all of those fun ways. And then the last element that I like to make sure to hone in on is newsletter, having that consistent way of communicating with those who've already connected with you, who are part of your tribe, and who just need a little nudge and a friendly reminder to keep tuning in and to remember that you're here to serve them, and they can help be a voice in sharing, whether it's their reviews or whether they got a nugget, and you just keep that cycle and that conversation going, and they're your greatest ambassadors and your greatest promoters when you do that and have that in place as a fearless creator with the method that I have in place too.
Sounds like you're on top of that. What advice can you give someone that's brand new to podcasting? Just probably just anything, just, you know, off the top of your head. One thing that you can tell someone that's brand new. Is it something they should go into? Is it something they should look the other way and run? Like, you know, what do you think? Somebody.
Yes, I would say one of the things I love sharing when it comes to tips, because there's so many tips that you can give. But even on Clubhouse today, we had 2 rooms. And one of the things that I found a lot of people, as you mentioned earlier, with getting frustrated. And I want to always encourage people that, you know, it is going to be a long game. It's not going to, you're not going to see the numbers right off the bat. You just have to remain consistent in terms of the people who today are reaping a lot of the benefits of having started 10 years ago, which is when podcasts really started. So those who really started They always ask the question, even today, when is the best time to start? And it was yesterday. But if you haven't started yet, it's now, it's today. And so I want to encourage you that even if you're just starting now, you're going to be so much further ahead than those who are going to start later, those who are going to start tomorrow, next week, or next year. And so if you can just keep it in your mindset that if you just go ahead and begin, then you're going to see it's a long game and it's going to pay dividends. If you just do not give up, you don't get overwhelmed, you stay consistent, you get the encouragement that you need, you show up in the right places for your people, they will encourage you. And then the people who you're collaborating with, who are your peers in the industry, because right now doors are opening so far when it comes to podcasting. And so I want to encourage you to become a podcaster, don't run away from it. and just really link arms with the right people and get the guidance as you're receiving from Christine, and I'm partnering with her and just being able to help you if you desire to also get going and have a community to just keep encouraging you on that journey to create fearlessly.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for coming on. Before we end, let me know where we can find you online.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's such a delight and a pleasure truly to be with you today, and excited to see in what ways I can keep providing value to you and your community. And the way in which that you can best find me is simply radiantperliving.com/connect. And because I'm in all the places, that's my one-stop shop where you can get all the links to the YouTube and the podcast and the products and the freebies and everything to make sure that you are able to show up as your best self, and just being able to know that you're not alone on this journey, and that there are a radiant plethora of resources available to you that you can tap into as a form of really expanding your reach and the wealth that is available at your fingertips. Just want to keep encouraging you on that journey. And so that's just going to be at radiantperliving.com/connect.